and welcome to another discussion in the SF Masterworks Read Along series. We work our way through the books in the SF Masterworks collection published by Colanx in the order they were published as Masterworks, not in their actual publication order. We are going to be talking about Ubik today by Philip K. Dick. I think this is a three-peat author, like book of the month calls it. No, I think this is the fourth
Four.
Philip
Number
K. Dick.
4. This is
Yeah,
number 4. Yeah.
he's popular in this. I think every 6 or 7 books or so we have a Philip K. Dick book in this collection. So today is going to be Ubik. The book's coming up for the next 3 months if you're reading along with us. I think Ubik was a little strange because it was October's book. We ended up discussing it in November, so we'll just do the next book in December. So Timescape by Gregory Benford is coming up next for December. Then we'll do More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon for January, and Man Plus by Frederick Pohl for February. If you'd like to join us for any of these or all of these, either here in the actual discussion or just talk to us about it on the forum, please check out the Patreon forum. That's all. Introductions then. I guess, Layla, could you kick us off?
Sure. I'm Layla Goshi. I edit for Balladine Magazine, and I just published a poetry chapbook.
Oh.
So kind of fun.
Nice.
I'm Jared. I'm the Fantasy Thinker at the YouTube channel, and also can be found on the Page Chewing forums for plenty of podcasts.
Yes, and I'm Chris Mullen from the Chronicle of Chris YouTube channel, also on some of those podcasts I charge with, but probably most relevantly, the Speculative Speculations weekly podcast where we talk about sci-fi novels of all sorts and short stories.
And short stories. Lots of fun. Lots of sci-fi chat. Anyway, so I think we're all largely, I don't know how I feel about Philip K. Dick, the author, but looking at the ratings we put in for previous Philip K. Dick books, I think we largely like it. So where would you guys place this book among the other 3 PKD books that we've read for this series?
Wow,
That's a good question.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, for me, this one is between this and Scanner Darkly. I like those 2 the best. And it's kind of funny because I think Scanner Darkly was better consistently throughout, but I think the second half of this one blew away the first half of this one and was really strong and really was exciting. I really love how this book ended. How the last 180 pages went was fantastic. And so yeah, I don't know. This one's maybe bordering on my favorite, but give it some more time.
For me, it's squarely number 2. Beyond Dream number 1, then Ubik, and then I'd say Scanner Darkly is closer or further away from Ubik than Ubik is to Deandra's Dream, and then Martian Time Slip, which I enjoyed, but I can tell you almost nothing about it at this stage.
What about you, Layla? I forget how many of these you read.
I have not. This was my first Philip K. Dick book.
Oh, what did you think?
Well, I really liked it. I almost gave it an epic. But it is because of that last half. And also, I really like interdimensional thinking, I guess. And I liked how he, I really liked everything he did around that, concept in this book. So, yeah, I always had this impression that he was kind of like a commercial writer and, I'll get to that someday. But I thought this was a pretty deep book. So I don't know why I have that impression, but
Well,
but
he is popular, Leila. Like that's
yeah,
definitely true. Like within the genre, he is somebody that is quite heavily revered, and usually that equals commercial.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just had this odd perception, but definitely he's on my list to read more now. So um,
Well, I have good news for you.
I know there's a lot.
I think every book he's written is in this collection, and we like
Not quite.
have one every 6 or 7 uh, books is a PKD book.
Yeah,
Anyway, yeah, yeah, I agree. I think this one is really deep on themes, but then I forget about Martian Time Slip. That book, like with Chris, has already slipped my mind. But the other 3 books I'm thinking, and they're all really deep thematically, and there's so much that you can think about and fan out from each of those on various topics. I think Scanner Darkly was the most, I think, human book of all of these. The others explored um, slightly more abstract philosophical questions, I think. But regardless, they were all on subjects that are really close to my heart, and especially this one with all the exploration around consciousness and what it like. And I wonder what it says. We'll get into it about, say, any school of thought that believes in a creator, for instance. I think, yeah, this was a really deep book. It was a reread for me, and I read the last 100-ish pages in one sitting.
Oh,
And not just because I had the discussion today and I did all of that yesterday.
no.
But
As we often know, Varsha, the fact that there's a discussion coming up does not mean that you're guaranteed to finish the book.
exactly,
So it must have been good. It must have been good.
I fought sleep to
Yeah.
finish it. Normally, that's the point at which I give up and just show up at the discussion saying, you know what, I didn't finish the book. We'll talk about the part that I did.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
No, I could definitely see that though, because the last 100 pages of this book were just absolutely riveting. Like
yeah,
you really just did not know what was going to happen next, and that's in the best way possible.
Yeah.
You know, because you could be reading a book where you don't know what's going to happen, but that's kind of frustrating because maybe the author's not telegraphing it good enough or not drawing you in well enough. But he definitely draws you in with the events, the plot and the events that are happening in this book. And those last 100 pages where you're wondering what is going to happen in the next chapter based upon the crazy things that happened in the chapter I just read, you had no idea, but you were so eager to find out because the way he just set it all up with the first 100 pages, which admittedly to me felt a little slow, but it was a slow setup on purpose in order to get to that to that second half where it's just nonstop, like, wow, wondering what's going to happen next. Wow, what's going to happen in the next chapter? Where are these people now? What's going to, not only what's going to happen to them, but what state are they in
hmm
based upon what we conjecture, like what we're trying to figure out what's happening outside of where they are, and we
yeah,
don't know. You have no clue. And the way he puts it all together at the end, it was just I thought it was really clever, and I really enjoyed how it all ended out, even if I don't quite understand it all, but but it was fun as hell.
So certainly to that point, actually, Jared, I think the book actually caught me unawares because I think, as you say, the first half of it is very, I hate to say standard PKD because, I mean, his ideas are always wild. You know what I mean? There's no such thing as standard PKD because it's all like ideas on his page and whatever's going in his head. But the fact that it became very plotty, and the second, I don't mean plotty as in DDY, I mean TTY, as in there was quite a few revelations within the story that kind of were really important and that also you could have seen and also have been used a lot throughout, science fiction writing, in TV and stuff like that. That kind of idea has come boring an awful lot. So it did catch me unawares because it did become so propulsive and so kind of interesting and kind of revelatory, which I'm not sure any of the other books really were revelatory. Like if you think back to Scanner Darkly, the spin or otherwise, you sort of knew and could see from definitely the halfway point of the book, you sort of knew what was going on. And same with an awful lot of the other ones, where there's this one, I think you could describe it as a shock twist in some ways. So, yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. So I have a question for you guys. I'm thinking back to the other books, and I can't say that I got attached or liked any of the characters in any of his books.
Mm.
So was that similar for all of you, or did I think for me the book, what makes the book work for me mostly is the events and the ideas that are explored. Mostly like the characters are like very background and secondary for the most part in all of the PKD books that we've read. Does your experience match up with that, or were there people that stood out to you that you're like, I'm gonna die on a hill to protect them?
No, I think you're dead on there, Vasha. This was when I said this book was typical PKD, I meant it in the fact of the characters are kind of the same in all his books. They don't really. He doesn't go that. Scanner Darkly went a little more deeper into characterization than his other ones, but for the most part, character building is not his strong suit. For these, his strong suit is ideas, and he's a very good plotter. Even Martian Time Slip had a very good plot to it, that's where PKD shines in his writing style.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the what I would consider main characters are sympathetic characters. There's a little bit of something off about all of them. But I did have sympathy for the guy who he saw the old-fashioned elevator operator, and then next thing you know, he's aging rapidly. So I have a little bit of sympathy for him, but that's not really characterization. But if you think about the other characters, they all had a flaw, which isn't necessarily bad at all. I think it makes it interesting as well. Yeah.
And it's not, if anybody's listening to this, it's not like his characters are totally throwaway, but they never develop to the point that you're desperate for them to survive. They're interesting parts of the plot, but if anybody had died, and spoiler, kind of everybody but one is already dead. It's kind of one of those things.
Everybody but one.
Well, this is the question that goes, but it already is a world where death is really not the be all and end all anyway. This kind of idea, again, the very PKD idea of this half-life, where you can still be sort of alive and present after you're dead. So it kind of set it up that death wasn't the be all and end all anyway. So it kind of give this space for characters to exist within, for you to get to know them to the point, but not actually become terribly invested whether they were alive or dead or do survive at that stage. However, it does set up the jeopardy of the fact that our main characters who we follow, Joe Chip, which is like what a name. You do want him to survive so that we find out the end of the story, I think, rather than necessarily him exist as a person, because all of these people are dying away, supposedly one by one within the story. So if he dies, then there's no narrator to take us through to the end of the book. So I think there's a jeopardy set up in that end.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I guess, if I did want Joe Chip to live, but my reasons are how else will we know what's happening?
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. So I was surprised by how quickly it took off. Like in my mind, the Luna explosion didn't happen until well into the latter half of the book, but that happened pretty quickly, right? Within the first 50 pages or so, I think. And then the rest of the book was them figuring out the fact that they were dead, maybe, and people collapsing, and I think, what did you guys think about the setup of Jory? It it was interesting to me that there was just that like one passage that set him up as someone like who could take over the mind of the people in Half-Life with him, but then like he's sort of the main villain, I suppose, by the end of the book, which works. Did you feel like that was sufficient setup? Did you how did that go for you guys? Like, did it feel like nah, too little and too much afterwards?
Yeah, that was interesting because I mean, PKD really threw the wool over my eyes. I think because he sets up this like psychic operations team thing going on here, and you're thinking it's gonna be more like more like a almost a Mission Impossible type of thing or something like that, and then of course he throws that all out of whack when the explosion happens and stuff like that. But you're really geared towards one of them being the bad person. Pat most likely, because she's the one with the unknown power and the this ability to kind of hit rewind and play again, play record, and so I thought it was going to be more of an exploration of that aspect of time control, and then and I was really focused on that, going after the explosion, when they went down to the earth and they're going to the place to talk to the Half-Life people. I really thought there was going to be a huge exploration of that time manipulation type thing, and and of course with him looking at newspapers and stuff and the years, and you're still thinking that and still thinking that, and then all of a sudden, bam! It all gets messed up, and at that from that point on, it was like anything goes, and it was just like wow.
I have this sense that um, that Pat Conley, the romantic interest of Joe Chip, um, I thought that she was the culprit
Hmm.
in all of it. I kept waiting for that shoe to drop, but you know, it it wasn't Jory either. But Jory then emerged. It's like she was we were distracted by Pat Conley thinking, okay, whatever's going on, she's got to have a hand in this. But then Jory coming from the other direction, doing something totally different, which is invading and draining, everybody around him. So I really loved that, and I liked Jory for I liked Jory for that reason as a I won't say nefarious character because it really reminded me of there's a scene in Malazan. I don't know if we've discussed this ever, but the child, the mother ages rapidly because of the child. If you remember that part.
Yeah, in
And
Memories of Ice.
yeah, and I kind of felt like there was something going on with that as well. The youngest of uh, whatever that cohort was of the Half-Life people was still, even in Half-Life, was drawing energy from the adults around him,
Mm,
to live and to prosper. So I thought I really liked how that was
mm,
done. Um,
yeah.
It was interesting to me because by the time the revelation came that it was Jory,
uh-huh.
I think it worked out that it was Jory. Did you
Mhm.
not? I think everybody had. I mean, it was set it out clear, which, as you kind of set up, Barsha, it was interesting because it was such a non-factor throughout the story, aside from that bit at the start. And it probably speaks narratively how you wrote that and give that such clear identity within the story that stuck out even, and you were able to retain that through to the end of the book. That was a character that had this. Once we realized they were in Half-Life world, and that the person who was probably connected to that in some way was Jory, and that all of the other things were just kind of red herrings to go through it, even to the point that I think, didn't Pat Conroy think that it actually was her?
I don't know. She was really weird about what she admitted to and what she
Right.
didn't.
Mm.
And again, like, we got Runsitter's perspective for all of this, and no one really admitted to or denied anything. But he thought that Pat Conroy, Gigi Ashwood, wow, the names I'm remembering this time.
Yeah.
And
This is what
and
happens when you read 100 pages at once, for so this is good.
And the Hollis was that the competing agency?
Yes.
Or the anti-agency to their agency that keeps them in business. So he thought that these three were plotting together for a long time and like did this whole time loop thing, and not a time loop, like basically set up events so that he decides to go to Luna on that mission. And like, but that's just his conclusion. So we still don't know what's going on with Pat Conroy, or even whether that's a true talent. Like, I think like she was. Oh, that's the other thing that was like, I think for me, done so brilliantly. You guys mentioned it already, but the the fact that like Pat's talent matches so closely to what is going on. Nobody really understands it. So anything to do with time, they're like, you're doing it, and she does. And oh, I think she actually says my skill hasn't been working since the explosion. And which, if you believe her, and she's dead, and that she's dead, makes sense. Like, she's dead, so she can't use her power anymore.
Yeah.
Or talent, I think they called it in this world. So where was I going with this? Yeah. So we don't really know what's going on with Pat, I don't think. All we know is everybody guessing at what she's doing, and she, I think, is creating an illusion of power and strength that maybe is more than what she has. Which, while we're on the subject of Pat, the thing that I most remembered from this book, from my first read, was that scene in which Joe Chip is climbing the stairs, and Pat is just like watching him without helping him. And there's some like cruelty and mockery in her eyes. At least that's how I remember it. And like, that scene just stood out to me. That's the whole thing I remember. And I actually have a picture of it in my mind. And I started to think that I was imagining it until we actually got to that scene. And yeah. So, so yeah, that's what I remember about her. Like, this sort of cruel person who's in some ways almost as whimsical as Jory, maybe. But then she also has a mission of, theoretically, of killing all of the inertials, assuming she's working for the other
Hollis.
firm. So
Yeah.
Hollis, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that was. I was so totally sucked in. I thought she was lying when she said like,
Yeah.
I totally thought she was lying, and then I was like, as we got later on, I'm like, oh, okay,
Maybe.
she's just another victim.
And then she just died so unceremoniously. We didn't
Yeah.
even see her die.
Yeah, it's like, oh man, I kind of felt bad about how I felt towards her earlier. But yeah, and it's funny because she decayed so quickly after all that, and it was. I think that's an interesting theme running throughout this book. This sense of time and decaying and things decaying over time, and he posits this idea that this half-life that people are in after they die decays over time. Like their consciousness eventually goes away, and it's not strictly defined on how fast that takes place and how, and how long that people can stay around in this scientifically controlled, you know, uh, extension of beyond death of your consciousness. And and I like that. And because he mentions early on, and right after page 100 or so, the decay versus Runseter type of
Mhm.
contest going on, and which is why the term Ubik is introduced at all. That's Runseter's, it means manifestation of trying to fight decay. And I thought that theme running out through the whole thing, I think, is pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's one interesting question that I think stories like this bring up, because they took a long time to figure out that they were not in their reality, but they were in some sort of simulated environment, I think. And as far as they knew, it was a simulation of their own making, or like they were in the Half-Life world, but they didn't know where the world was coming from, which they eventually had to figure out. So I think this brings up interesting questions about, like, if you're not actually like physically living in a world, if your entirety of life is through your mind, what does that mean? And is that as real as if you were in the physical world? I think there are some books that make the point that both are. Of course, it's all in your head, Harry, but that doesn't make it any less real. Sorry.
Right.
Um, so where was I going with this? Yeah, I think and the authors tend to like inevitably sort of make a point, whether or not they were intending to, I think, about the fact that it feels as real. So I think this one is really deeply exploring that, and there was some, and it took the opportunity to explore some philosophical questions like this, right? Like, I think it mentioned mind body dualism, and it also mentioned, I think, some Plato's thing about how, I guess, the abstract use that you put onto objects, like, so the objects weren't degrading into, say, scraps of iron, they were actually degrading into the older versions of themselves.
That's right. Yeah.
So like, and it turns out that that's Jory, but that question was interesting to explore while we were there. So I think it did a fantastic job of going to all those places, and sort of opening threads for us to think about.
Yeah, it was very like the lost thing, wasn't it? We talk about this idea of
Yeah.
lost, where you go, oh, well, what are the numbers? What do the numbers mean? And then by the time you find out what the numbers mean, you're like, oh, well, what about the button?
Yeah.
The numbers aren't important, the buttons are important. And it was kind of the same through this story, was like, who's responsible? What's happening? Oh, what is Ubik? What is Ubik actually doing? Why are things getting older? It had mystery upon mystery upon mystery. And I think that's why at the end of the day, I just kind of got onto this kind of flow of Philip K. Dick's mind must have been absolutely buzzing off the planet when he was writing this, because it was almost like he couldn't keep a train of thought through the book of the things that he wanted to explore in much the same way. And so therefore we got this kind of idea hopping that happened throughout the book. And in a lot of ways it just completely works, because they were tangentially close enough to the original point that by the time he kind of pulled the Scooby-Doo mask off and actually said what was happening, you were like, yeah, I knew it was Jory all along.
Yeah. And that
Oh,
was it up too. You didn't feel cheated about the Jory reveal, like you
That's
said,
right.
Chris, because like just before that chapter, uh, in which the reveal happens, Ransita is talking to Joe Chip, and then he says, "I want to talk to Ella, but I really hope I don't get Jory this time." And you're like, "Oh, is that what's happening?" um,
He's
so
invading.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. But we also had an Ella reveal too, right?
Yes,
Yes, we did.
yeah, it turns out that she's the one who's the force for good.
Yep.
She's the one who created Ubik by doing some research with
Ah,
other
Ubik.
Half-Lifers. Ubik. Safe when consumed in prescribed quantities. What was that? How does don't exceed, like, okay, you have to love a cereal commercial that says never exceed the prescribed one bowl. And nothing wrong about a thing that is flammable, but you're okay to put in your mouth in small quantities.
Yeah.
Highly flammable,
Those are
but
brilliant.
you can eat it in small quantity.
Brilliant epigraphs.
Yeah.
I feel like the Ubik thing tied it together, tied whatever the multiple realms they were in, was, it's kind of a double-edged, or two sides of a coin, speaking of coins, which we'll probably come to, but, it seemed to be something Runsiter, well, it was something Runsiter was aware of and recommended, and then Joe Chip would use it, and it would, prevent decay for a certain amount of time. But it was also, kind of like a cosmetic. I mean, it was like a
Yeah.
commercialized solution. So it made me think of, cosmetics and aging and all the things we spend money on to prevent the, march of time in one way or another. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and just the idea of it being the answer. It's like the answer wasn't science or let's figure out what's going on. It's let's buy this aerosol can, and spray it on ourselves. And so I thought, really socially relevant, and very much relevant today as much as when he wrote it.
Yeah, because it was almost, for all the sense and all about it, it was almost like a belief thing, that if you had the Ubik sprayed on you, you couldn't age, and like you say, like a cosmetic product. This product will make me more beautiful, regardless of whether the truth is there or not. It was kind of more in that person's head that I'm doing. If they get more of the product, then they would be okay.
A placebo effect.
A placebo, yes, absolutely. Thank you, Jared. You saved me there from rambling for another 30 seconds about that word. But that yes, exactly right. It was, that's what it felt like. Even if it did have some sort of effect, it was more sort of in the head that I will continue to exist as long as I have this to hang on to, which was obviously a very interesting idea.
Yeah, and you could say he was making a statement about some of the products that were coming out at the time that he probably thought, weren't actually doing anything. Marketing was a growing field in the 60s and from the 50s, and so I imagine that he wasn't. You could tell he was definitely making fun of it and making light of all the marketing that goes on. He'd probably have an aneurysm if he woke up today, but
wow, yeah.
But
who knows? He's probably in a facility somewhere, Jared. To be honest,
he's actually in a Half-Life.
Right now. Indeed.
But he also had some commentary about it was interesting when Joe Chip was going back in time, and he was running into the regular people in Iowa, and they were the regular people were telling him about Lindbergh's right about Germany, and he's complaining about the newspapers and the media, and the American people aren't supposed to get into this war and stuff like that. So there was all kinds of little social commentary hits going on as well when he was writing this.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that subject, why do you think he picked 1939 to go back to? That was
Yeah, I have a feeling because he wrote this when the Vietnam War was going on,
Mm,
and I'm pretty sure he was anti-war,
mm,
and he in '39, of course, is when right before the Americans entered the war,
mm,
but it was also
Right.
during a
Yeah.
time when there was a ton of debate about whether the Americans should enter the war
Be
in
there. Yeah.
Europe going on in the United States at that time, and um, Lindbergh was a famous person who was famously a bigot against Jews, and but a lot of people followed him because he was a hero of sorts. So it was that kind of that kind of rhetoric was actually going on in the United States in 1939, and I think he was probably trying to equate it with his own time and talking like we always say, science fiction is about the time it's written, and
Right. Yeah.
that's what he was doing there. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
nice. That's a
It's
great
it's
point.
it's also probably an idea that, I mean, 39 is when the world changed forever. Regardless of otherwise, the
Mm,
Second World War is the most important event in humanity, quite possibly single event
mm,
that goes on, especially one that continued on for a time, because the technological advances, everything that has happened in our lifetime was propelled on by the advent of war, and wars tend to
mm.
do that in some ways. So you probably no point going back any further than 1939, because that's when everything really changed in some ways. So could be that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool. So, changing topics a little bit. The whole, I think if I squint a little bit, the whole Jory controlling their world and shaping it, bit of it, that feels to me like a bit on. I don't want to say religious commentary because I don't think that's quite it. It's more, I think, exploring the question of what it must be like to live in the world, like what it means to be in the hands of a whimsical creator, like who makes decisions seemingly arbitrarily or for for their own reason, um, which I think is sort of, if he didn't intend it, I think at least can be interpreted as, say, um, consequences of like religious doctrine, right? Like, so I thought that bit was interesting. I didn't think of it last time, but I don't know if we were meant to go there, but it suddenly feel like there's some elements to it that could be explored in that regard.
Hmm. I mean, this is another book by Dick, and I don't think necessarily Jory. I can't place Jory in that way, but it's another anti-capitalism book. I mean, he's always been sort of on that train of be wary of capitalism, and there are definitely
Mm,
elements of it within this book where he basically you can't open your front door without
yeah,
putting money in.
yeah,
He has lots of those little jibes in there. He even has this jibe about when people are important to get put in coins, like Runsler's face appearing on the coin
yeah,
and that kind of stuff. You know, he has an awful lot of dig of that. Now, I can't tie Jory definitely to that controlling megalomaniac kind of thing, almost like a. If he had lived today, it might have been this thing. We've got a child in charge, and this child's basically running the world as they see fit. In some ways,
yeah.
and make some allegory there. But there is that again that very clear message coming through from him in this story, as much as it was in Washington Time Slip or otherwise.
Mm,
That's a good
yeah,
point.
yeah. What about the coins then? I think
Mm.
does the last chapter mean that Ronciter is dead too? Has he just died, or has he been dead all along?
Good question. I don't know.
More importantly, is it important?
Hmm? Is it
Runsiter, you
important?
said?
Is it important to the story now?
Yeah.
Now that everything's sort of unraveled, and you
Mm,
wanted people to sort of be alive or otherwise, because the fact that Ella makes the decision to kind of move on from him anyway,
mm,
in some ways, I think is kind of, there is a certain time that you should exist in this earth, and even afterlife in your half life, and then it's time to move on and be one with something else. I think is kind of more where the end of the book kind of comes from to me, because it does kind of say like this life is fleeting in some ways, and it has a half-life and it has a duration. What you decide to do with it is up to yourself, whether it's walking upstairs, stumbling, get the lift. You might want to get that lift, whatever it is. You make your own choice.
Well, I have a Chris Moen dollar bill here.
Oh wow. That must mean I'm
Perfect
dead.
likeness.
Is this actually happening? Wow.
It's actually happening. Yeah, I love the fact that he had Joe Chip money in his pocket at the end, of the, end of the book. That was brilliant.
Yeah.
That's what helped me. That's what led me to feel like there was something interdimensional, that it's like he was saying both dimensions are equal. I mean, Joe Chip, for the last half of the book, and they thought they were physically there. They had bodies. They conceived, that they had bodies, and I guess Runsitter felt the same way. So I was left at the end of the book wondering who really is, again, who really is dead, and what does that mean, in this book, if Joe can impact Runsitter in the same way Runsitter can impact Joe, So to me, it was a commentary on whatever the afterlife could be. It could just be a shift into, different realm. I mean, I'm not saying that's my thought, but in the book, within the concept of the book, have they just shifted dimensions, and each side thinks the other is dead when they're both carrying, their consciousness is still carrying on, So that's what I took from the coins.
So without Jory, without the Jory of it all, it does seem like each person builds their own. It's almost like dreaming, right? Or maybe exactly like dreaming, in that they create a world and it feels real for the duration that they are in that state. So it's just that Jory sort of interfered and changed their world up a bit. So now they are in Jory's dream, not in their own. So, but it's kind of like, I think, the signals that we get, like when our alarm is ringing and there are noises in the dream that sort of try to tell us that something's going on in the outside world.
Yeah.
So the money feels a bit like that, like some indicator that you're dead. You're dead. You're not actually alive. You're feeling cold because you're in a cold pack. So like all these signals that are creeping in from their body, and their mind sort of being aware of it in a certain sense, but like trying to manifest it in the dream in a way that sort of, I guess, they're barely able to make sense, which like that's what that felt like to me. So maybe but it's interesting that they both had the same mechanism to do that, which means something else is controlling this reality. So yeah, maybe it's what you said, Leila, and like there is an actual physical dimension that they go to. It's not just in their heads. Or sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
We know that they can all influence each other. Their mental states can influence each other. So maybe like things are leaking out, and so they have the same manifestation of knowing that they're dead.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, I thought you were headed the same direction. Yeah. Yeah.
So we all need to keep a can of Ubik next to our bed.
Yeah. Can't fall asleep without one.
But like, there is the sense that through the money and all the rest, and the clues are all there that this was a dream world, or it was a world of somebody else's imagination. The fact that those things kept on changing, which is why when you get to the end, it didn't totally jump out and wasn't totally jarring, because that was what was going on, and all the clues were there to say, oh yeah, of course, things don't change just in the real world.
Yeah, but he also set it up so that it was, you thought originally it was going to be a psychic thing. It was going to be somebody messing with your mind
That's right.
somehow in the real world. And then all of a sudden, it wasn't until we got introduced to these half-life pods and stuff like that, and the fact that we got introduced right away that Runcita could ask his wife for advice on the business, but that was the extent of it until we got the switch later on, and then it was like, oh, that all makes that all changes the whole dynamic of the whole
Yeah.
story going back to the beginning. It's not psychic people manipulating with people's minds. It's this. It's they're dead. And so I think that was like you said, it wasn't like it was a surprise, but when you got the surprise, you were like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of the genius of the book is that you're not sitting there questioning yourself like, did I read it right? You're going, oh yeah, no, I did read it right, and I read it exactly as he meant us to read it when he wrote it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's also the I think he reveals pretty early on that this could be going on, that they could all be dead. I really like how quickly they came to that conclusion, because then it's not what the hell is going on, it's whose knowledge of their death is true or not, which
Yeah.
is interesting. Uh, like it's not like um, what am I trying to say? It's 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 he's not like sort of putting wool over our eyes about that aspect of it. It's not just like really strange things going on and okay, maybe Pat is responsible. It's also Al Hammond has this really nice conclusion about I'm feeling cold, things are like not feeling very dreamy, so we must be dead. Uh, and I love how quickly and easily they jumped to that conclusion. And then from there we keep switching perspectives, not so frequently with Ronsitter, but I think we are made to think that Ronsitter's alive until the very last chapter. So I feel like we can be reasonably sure that everybody else is dead. The question for me is whether Ronsitter's dead too.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, maybe he survived Jory, maybe he wasn't one of the, or maybe he's starting to be manipulated by Jory now. Uh,
I actually, speaking of manipulation, I had in my mind for a while that uh, is it Stanton? I think Stanton was the name of the owner of the company on the moon, and then you
Hmm.
have the rival company. So that was one. If it wasn't Pat Conley, I had in the back of my mind, are they manipulating this in some
Mm.
way? You know, as a revenge plot. And then I wonder just what you all think. Why why did he take them out to the moon to do that? I mean, what did that signify?
Oh,
Um,
apparently there are some loopholes, or there's less regulation on Luna,
oh,
so something like that. Someone mentioned that at some point. So that's the theory that our characters had about why they went to Luna. And in fact, I think there was a whole thing about Ransita saying that they shouldn't take jobs on Luna because of the lack of regulation. But he ended up taking the job anyway with this one, I guess because it was so lucrative and he couldn't say no.
yeah,
Um,
that makes sense. I mean, so
yeah.
it's kind of a plot device, and I did kind of see it like, well, maybe it was just another aspects of the whole dimensional thing. They were not on Earth anymore when the bomb happened, although then they supposedly were brought back to Earth, or they were. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be another interpretation. I don't think it quite went there, but when you mentioned Layla that it could be Hollis's firm, so they have a lot of telepaths. I don't know if we've seen powers where they can manipulate thoughts. I think they can only read thoughts, but if they had uh, a talent that could manipulate thoughts, then maybe all of these people think they are dead, but they are not.
That's a
So
good.
many layers to this.
That's why I gave it a masterwork and was thinking epic, because there are so many layers, and you can sit there and think it through. in different ways. And so I think it's a great ending.
Yeah.
Yeah. And good book. Yeah.
Hmm. What do you think of some of the ridiculous elements that we got throughout, like the the guy who blew up as a balloon first before he blew up proper, and, and the guy in I think the guy who runs the moratorium, he has a hat that has propellers on top, which
Yeah.
is insane.
That's the drug. That's all the drug.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
it was almost like nobody will believe this guy's in the future unless he makes something futuristic. Let's put a hat of
yes,
propellers on the top. Yeah,
that's like a human balloon.
yeah, very futuristic. Yeah,
Yeah.
It gave
Cool.
me the sense of a dream, like you said, dream earlier. Okay, are we in a dream state of some
Mm,
kind? Just all these, as Chris said, red herrings. Where okay, is this a factor in something, or
yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely.
So it makes it, yeah, it's really good, and it's hard to do that. I mean, not every writer could do that.
yeah,
You know.
and it helps that in general. I think it's fair to say now we're 4 books in. He doesn't really write the formula book. Like
Mm,
he doesn't have a thing that he does, especially for a prolific author. It's not like other prolific authors that write crime. That's almost like a crime by numbers. At a certain point, you sort of know the flow of those books. He's sort of done something slightly differently in all four of these books that we've read. So it's sort of what makes him an interesting reader. And as we
Yeah.
see, we have plenty more opportunity to discover his work over the next couple of weeks, months.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which one's next? Dr. Blood Money, I think.
Next one is Dr. Blood Money. It is indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because he gets a different idea, and he's so idea focused that it
think that's
turns into something different, just based upon that original premise.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah,
it.
that makes sense. Any other thoughts before we wrap up? I feel like we're getting to the end.
No, not that. I suspect I'd be able to recall Ubik a lot of months down the line, as opposed to some of the other books. Sometimes they go in together, but this one definitely feels like it's going to stick.
Yeah. I think the half-life of it all is a pretty powerful idea that was explored in this one.
Mm.
And that scene at the staircase with Pat, apparently, because I have that in my head.
That was a good scene. That was a good scene altogether. Even
It was a
him
good scene,
making his
yeah.
way up and then getting into the room, and possibly, that'd have been great for a TV series. Open the room and you see the back of somebody's head sitting in the chair, like, and there's your credits. That would have been good.
Yeah.
Lots of good things like that.
Was there anything ever done with this book as far as adaptations?
It seems ripe, doesn't it, for
does,
something? Yeah.
Absolutely.
No. Oh,
No,
official
nothing.
PKD Twitter 5 years ago. Hints at.
So Michelle Gondry had plans to do it, but then abandoned it. So
That's true.
Oh.
Well,
Oh,
get
well.
on that. Get on that, Chris.
yeah, absolutely. That's my job. Thanks very much. Yep.
Start a Twitter viral thing that will get it adapted or make the film. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much for listening. As once again, the next 3 books are going to be Timescape by Gregory Benford, More Than Human by Theodore Sturgeon, and Man Plus by Frederick Pohl, who is also a repeat author. Gregory Benford and Theodore Sturgeon will meet for the first time in the upcoming months. If you'd like to join us, please check out the Featuring Forum. Thank you so much. Bye.